Hello, my fellow hemp nuts. Are you ready for the cannabis bonanza?
Woo! Yeah.
Well,
Finally.
welcome to the new Hemp Times show, recorded at Gotham Studios, the sweetest smelling podcast studio in the world. As usual, today's podcast is partially powered by McSorley's Chili Dogs, McSorley's Ale House, the oldest ale house in the United States. Also partially powered by Five and Dime's Old Fashions, handcrafted by Aaron. We're also fueled by Eddie and his buddy with the nice hair's ponytail at the Smith.
And Dennis and Caitlin from the Five and Dime too, because
Yeah,
they're very excited.
This is in chronological order.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm shutting
They
up.
also make
Man,
old
shut up
fashions.
again.
They make old fashions. They insist.
They insist.
They put the cubes in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they do a great job with those old
Right.
fashions.
I mean, come on, standardizing ice cubes, that's pretty hard. No, I'm just
Anyway,
kidding.
Sorry.
We'd also like to thank our Patreon supporters for helping to make this show
Yes,
possible.
Thank you, people.
My name is
Keep giving.
Jahan Marcu. I'm a cannabis researcher with a PhD. I'm joined by the unapologetic farmer Randy Cameroon Jr.,
Hey,
changing the world with sustainable community-based hydroponic cultivation and
Got it right.
agriculture.
Oh, I love that.
Got it.
And from HBO's Crashing, performing every week in Manhattan, Greer Barnes.
around the world.
Yes.
Around the world. Nice.
Yes.
And as usual, last but not least, our resident clinical social worker, Jen Roberts.
Thank you.
Jen.
Hello, guys. How are we doing today?
Good.
Before we conduct the check-in, we'll come back to that in just a second. Our show for the next hour or so is, Jan will come in and do our check-in with us, as she does every week, followed by our word of the day. We got another ancient word about cannabis. We'll discuss some high science, this study about THC analysis in the dead, and it has big implications for how we look at intoxication and policy. It's a really wild study.
Wait a minute.
Oh, this is gonna be a fun
THC
one.
and dead people?
Yes.
And dead.
All right. And then we'll get to some cannabis busting
Mm.
with the testing our news
What?
and science.
That got creepy
Da- da- da-
after
da-
it settled in.
We'll get to it. It's a
Okay.
wild study. Don't worry. We'll dive into that one a little bit. And then before we go to a listener call in, I want us to talk about 420 and what it means to you guys. And then of course we'll end with Mind Munchies. So here with the check-in is our licensed clinical social worker, making sure we're happy and healthy and living to
Happy.
our potential.
Thank you. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to New Hemp Times. I am Jan. I am the resident therapist here and just wanted to do my kind of check-in to see how people are doing since you're getting to know us week to week. There's some really cool stuff. There's stuff going on. And like I don't know if you guys saw this, but before I check in with you, I'm checking in with myself. There was that episode on Happy Monkey, the women entrepreneurs just
Oh, yeah, you
released.
sent that to me
Thank you,
today.
Vladimir.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of funny because yours truly is on there. So
With a
just
panel of other
little
folks sitting
snippets.
with you.
No, it's just the interviews
Okay.
that God, I can never remember his name. It begins. Oh my God, the interview
The
guy.
host guy.
Yeah, the host
Yeah.
guy. I love
Is
him.
it Vlad? No.
No, not Vlad. Anyway, so it's a really good thing. So check Happy Monkey TV, and that's a really good,
Cool.
really interesting thing. And so, anywho, it's been a rough, crazy week, and I just wanted to see how my favorite compadres, my Wednesday afternoon people, are doing. So, how you doing? Randy?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
What's going on in your world?
Just got back from distribution meeting, setting up some food distribution situations for Brooklyn Sprout.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful.
we met with a group called Red Rabbit, and
Mhm.
they distribute to schools here in New York and the tri-state area, I believe, outside of New York. But they have a huge distribution base. So we got another distribution partner, Big Cap.
Oh,
For
that's
real?
cool.
Yeah,
That's really
So we're gonna
good.
get these kids to eat vegetables?
that's right. At least
Hopefully
put
they
it in
will
front
eat
of
some chocolate on it.
vegetables.
Yeah, put
Yes.
some chocolate on it.
Chocolate dipped carrots.
There it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's
Yeah.
really good. So you feeling good? Life's
Yeah.
treating you well?
Gave you a little bit of energy boost,
Yeah.
you know.
It's always good when we have good stuff
That's
happen
right.
to us. Cool. Jahan, how are you doing?
Oh, I think I'm doing well. I'm a little sore from I went to an early session of martial arts yesterday and did some jujitsu and some jeet kune do.
Nice.
It was really good. We did these combos in jeet kune do, and I actually got a compliment from Seifu. There's this like build up to these combos, and it ends this 10 like punch kick combo ends with a hit to the groin and then running away.
that really?
That
Yeah.
works every time.
And I got my first
Start
compliment.
with the kick to the groin.
No, you gotta
Jeep would know
end
that
with
saying.
that. Yeah. It's like this quick thing, and he's like, "You look really good doing that. That was perfect." I was like, oh, "I found my move."
I'm sorry, Jay. Did you say Seifu or seafood?
Seafood. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
I
thought it
thought
was-
he said seafood.
I-
Sorry. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Hello.
Sensei seafood. Yeah.
Did you bow
Well,
to your
sensei
sensei?
is Japanese.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Oh,
Seafood is
damn it.
Chinese.
You didn't correct me last night when I kept asking you if you had bowed to your sensei.
I was like, I don't have one.
Bow
That'll
to
do
your
it.
sensei.
That'll do it.
That's a
I bow to no one. I actually don't have
Oh my God. Well, how are you doing, Greer?
I'm fantastic.
Yeah, what's up in your world?
Nothing.
There you go.
Oh, so, do you guys really believe that? Give me a break.
Yeah,
Nothing.
nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening. Well,
Same old, same old.
same old,
Yeah,
same old.
that's
You're
it.
playing at Comedy Cellar this week
No, I'm not gonna be
at all?
there. Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Hey, can you get me tickets?
For
'cause-
when?
Friday night. Girlfriends are coming in.
Really?
So yeah, if you guys want to meet some really fun, kind of crazy hippie women, I'm going to
Hey.
be hanging out with 3 of them this weekend.
Crazy hippies.
Nice.
Yeah. Anywho, okay, cool. Well, it sounds like we've had an uneventful week,
Very.
and it's time for us to have summer vacation,
Hey.
as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you for that check-in, Jan. Always good to hear what's happening with you guys and gals.
Thank
well,
you.
brings us to our word of the day. And I
Mm.
found another ancient Sanskrit and Hindi word for cannabis. And this one has a big definition, but this word is called Harshini or Harshini, 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 and it means the exciter of sexual desire, the rejoicer, delight giver, causer of elation.
Mm.
So that's a heck of a description for
Causer
cannabis.
of what?
Elation.
Elation.
Harshini.
Yeah.
I think we know a Harshini. We
I
grew
know
up with her.
a
And she was a
Harshini,
little,
yeah,
she's a little freaky too.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, that
she
fits.
kept us excited.
Exactly. The bringer of excitement.
Harshini.
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 Did you see the picture that
Yeah.
our social media person
She made a
yeah.
meme about
Oh,
the word of the day.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
And what does it look like, Jahan?
It's a flower.
It's a flower that's opening itself.
Hey.
Yeah. So,
Flowers open.
I'm always
Better than closed ones.
Yeah.
so.
Make
God.
them blossom.
Oh my
I'm
God.
hoping these words of the day change the vernacular, so people will be like, "Yeah, I woke in Harshini today."
That one worked though.
Dig it.
Or, well, as promised, we have some high science today, and I found this really wild study and interviews from these researchers. And this is another discovery that's bigger than gravitational waves. So there is new evidence out there that's going to invalidate a lot of THC testing that's done after people die from accidents or natural causes. So, they have these studies, and they try and say, like, oh, what caused the accident, what caused the death?
Right.
And they look at THC, and they're like, they report these, like, oh my God levels of THC, right?
Really?
Yeah. So like they'll look at roadside accidents and they'll take people go to the morgue and then they'll take blood samples and these THC levels are like really high and people were confused like,
In
wow.
these car accidents?
Yeah, or when people have THC in their system at the time of death. And what the researchers found out, because they were asked to determine, does marijuana play a role in death like in Colorado? And they came back with, we can't really answer that question because it's not scientifically possible because when you take a sample after death, the levels go sky high because the body's breaking down and releasing it from fat. So like they did these tests with people in a clinic where if you have someone who's below the legal limit, like in Colorado, which is 5 nanograms, that will actually, when they're alive, could be right at a legal limit, non-intoxicating sort of threshold.
Right.
But after death, that just goes sky high. So they're talking about they can't rely on these analysis when it comes to trying to detect impairment or whether or not they had levels, had it in their system when they're alive. And
Why are they testing after death? Just for the knowledge?
Yeah.
Or
So like, was
if
it alcohol? Yeah.
But if it's an
Opioids
alcohol-related crash, are they
Is it
just
crashes
checking
in-
to see?
Is it an accident in particular, or like just a death period when somebody dies? Like
It's
is it because of
generally
it?
death period, but
okay.
they really want to use this to be able to say, this data has been used for a long time to say we had an accident and these people had really high levels of THC in their
Yeah,
blood.
like AAA's been saying that for
Yeah.
a long time.
And when I look at these blood levels, I'm like, there's no
trying
way
to.
they got that from smoking. So I've been
No.
wondering for a while, are their tests just bad or what's
Their
happening?
tests are bad.
Yeah.
They're not
They don't know
relevant.
they don't know what they're doing.
They're not relevant.
Beat it, dummies.
So yeah, so it's just an artifact from the body breaking
I
down.
hope
Sure.
no government money's going to these morons.
Yeah.
Beat it, stupids.
But that makes
big fat
total
dummy.
sense about it being released once
Yeah.
once they're gone.
So I found this important because we hear about this all the time where people do these tests about, what drugs were involved at the scene of
Yep.
this death. Marijuana was there and it was there in really high amounts. So
Right.
the person may not have smoked for a week.
But it was the gunshots that killed him.
That killed him. He was very high though. How do you know?
Yeah, Jackwad.
Jack watch. Peanut.
So-
Peanut. I love that.
So I'm sure with 420
Such a dirty
approaching, we'll
word.
hear all
So
about
dirty.
Oh,
this.
you
But-
peanut.
Damn peanut.
You damn I think we
Ask
should.
Jimmy. Kids don't know what the hell we're
I
talking
know.
about.
I don't know.
We'll have to put that in the show.
Carter.
Carter. Oh, peanuts. Oh, my
I'm
God.
sorry, I was
You ain't
corny.
getting
I'm
either?
slow.
I saw it in
I
your
am
eyebrows.
slow.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it.
And I'm an
Okay.
age group.
Jimmy.
Ask Jimmy.
He
you
was a
got it?
peanut farmer.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Peanuts.
That's social studies knowledge right there.
Isn't that
See,
amazing?
okay,
And he
wait,
was a
wait.
really good president.
I
too.
have to say, the reason I didn't get it, my father used to always have a fictional friend named Jimmy or Jim. So that's why I was like, how did he know about Dad's Jimmy? Jim. He would be like, go ask Jim. Sorry.
He's
We
sitting
have
right
a-
there.
He's
Yeah.
sitting right there. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's what he used to
Ray.
say to you as a kid. That's
Don't buy-
awesome.
Ask
I'm
Jimmy.
gonna start saying that to my kids.
Yeah.
Go ask Tommy. Who's Tommy? You don't see him?
That's brilliant.
Oh my God!
You
Way to
don't
go!
see-
Your
No
dad
wonder I'm a
rocks.
friggin' therapist.
Can I have $5? That time? Ask Tommy.
Tommy, give it to
Wait,
you.
But what's
Tommy
it fun?
gets it.
Okay, so my oldest son had an imaginary friend too named Frosty. And they would actually get into arguments together.
They went to.
They would get into Julian would start getting into an argument, and one time we're at this like buffet at this wedding reception, and Julian
Frosty had too much to drink.
Julian is like getting mad and stomping his feet.
What's wrong with you? Don't
Frosty-
tell me what to do. I love weddings.
My dad
Oh,
was
that's
like,
funny.
"You've got to stop Julian because you're going to be on Dr. Phil one day or something like that." I was like, "Yeah," and here we are.
So what would you do? Escort Frosty out of
No,
the
I-
premises? Or-
I encouraged it. I thought it was cute.
Swing on him. Swing on. As soon as he turns
We
around,
still
swing on.
at Christmas time we still send Julian like pictures of Frosty the Snowman and stuff.
It sounds like
Nice.
the beginning of a horror film 40 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, what are you doing here? I've been looking for you.
No, never
Look, Frosty, I told you, man. I
Oh
don't
my
want nothing to do
God.
with you. Well, that's too bad. I'm back.
Oh my God,
Oh.
you guys are funny.
I
Anyway,
got kids in a family. You mean I have kids in a family?
exactly.
Oh man.
oh
you
my
guys.
God, we've already started.
Excellent.
Here we go.
Excellent. All right.
Anywho, I can't get on the fucking internet.
What?
Oh, really?
Maybe this supposed to be one of them shows they don't get to hear.
They don't get. Well,
Man.
it's being recorded anyway. So
Oh, you don't get to see it.
I don't get to see it.
Really? I wonder why though.
I don't know. I'll figure it out. That's what
Oh.
I've been doing over here.
Are you guys warmed up? Are you
Oh,
warmed
I
up?
think we are.
Okay. Well, I tried
Frosty, get out of here.
as soon
time
as
to
all
leave
the
the room,
imaginary people
Frosty.
leave, we can get started finally.
Tommy, go out there with
We grew up with a Frosty.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it.
Dance his ass off.
That's from the
Uh-uh.
Rock Steady crew.
Yep.
Sure, you
Frosty
grew up with a
Freeze.
Frosty. So did Julian.
Yeah.
Frosty Freeze.
Yeah.
Could other people see Frosty? Could other people see Frosty?
Oh yeah, this one you can see him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
right,
man.
wait.
You guys are making me want to look up
Great.
research about imaginary friends and cannabis. Like,
Well, I was about to get into something spiritual because
Oh, go
Frosty
ahead.
really could have been something Julian saw.
It was Julian's spirit animal, Frosty.
Hello,
It wasn't a psych.
I'm serious, man.
And he was getting angry.
we
'cause
we
he
could
couldn't
always
do them
we
dance
could always
steps.
call
Exactly.
Julian and ask.
Yeah.
What?
Julian, did you really see Frosty? He would kill me. Maybe we should.
We should.
We do have the
Frosty's
technology, you
real.
know.
and access to research.
Let's do a
journals.
seance.
Exactly. Let's get a Ouija board and bring
Oh
Frosty's
my
ass
God.
right back up in here.
If there's a sorcerer listening to this, could you please,
Could you please conjure the spirit of Frosty?
Dear Frosty. Well, if we need to
Oh,
call
Frosty.
Julian and ask if he ever saw him, let me know. We can do that. He'll kill me. Anyway,
It's like,
sorry.
Mom, you just
It's like, shut up, Mom.
put
You
it
can't
all
say
out
his
there.
name 3 times.
Exactly. Rian said it about 9. Now we're dead.
Yep, he's coming in our dreams tonight.
Exactly.
He's going to murder us. Anyway, sorry. We totally went off the deep end.
no, that's good. That's good.
You know why? Because it's that season. It's the 420 holiday season.
is.
So we're getting prepared.
And I tried to pick these and create these news and science headlines around, 420 and cannabis and stuff. Tried to pick some special ones that I could find or
Okay.
come up with. So if we're ready for Cannabusting, we can dive right in.
Let's do it.
So when you hear something strange about marijuana, who are you going to call?
Cannabusters.
All right. Here's where we
I can't
challenge
believe
you
we're
with a
doing that.
headline or story, and it's your job to determine if it's a finding, is it a fact, is it just fiction? So our first story.
Fiction. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. Frosty just gave me the answer.
Is he looking behind me? Is
Yes, he's right behind
Hey,
you.
man, Tommy.
It's getting cold in here. Do you feel it?
Oh my god!
All
I
right.
know the
Go,
hair's sticking
sorry.
up.
All
on my-
right. So first story, did this really happen or did I make this up last night? Former Surgeon General Jocelyn Elders has co-authored an op-ed on modern day reefer madness criticizing it. The former Surgeon General author an article recently criticizing modern day reefer madness.
See, I've been around for about 54 years,
Mm-hmm.
and in all my time, I ain't never heard of a Surgeon General by the name of
What's
Jocelyn
her name? Jocelyn.
Jocelyn
Elders.
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 Now the bitch might have been old,
But,
but she ain't that old. I never heard of.
I'm gonna have to say you came up with that today.
Well, I was waiting for you to show up.
Hey, he beat us. Go figure. I love
Hey,
it. He
all
showed
right.
up
I agree.
early.
You made that one up.
Jan,
Yes,
This-
Yes, what?
you made it up. I'm trying to multitask over here.
so
Do
while desperate for news and political stories to cover this week, I found this article published recently in the Psychiatric Times on the 21st Century Reefer Madness, authored by David Nathan, Jocelyn Elders, and Brian Adenoff, where they appeal to government officials and the public and our fellow physicians to support sensible regulation of adult cannabis use.
What
Surprising.
administration was she under?
Yeah.
I'd have to
I
check.
think it was
don't-
Clinton.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
Jocelyn
I thought
Elders.
Jocelyn
Elders
Elders
was
wait a
Clinton.
minute. I mean, the
I-
name sounds familiar, but
Yeah, she was from Arkansas. You don't know about her?
I don't remember.
She was first black woman that was a Surgeon General. She was
Really?
phenomenal.
But-
I thought
She
the
was
dude,
really
the
good
black
about like
guy
sex
that-
education and stuff like that.
Really?
First
Jocelyn Elders was
First
awesome.
black woman. Yeah.
So what's
She,
her
like-
angle? Her angle is there's going to be an overflow, and they want to get ahead of it and
Yeah,
put
I
some
think that
safety regulation
yeah,
in
it's
this
it's very even-handed in a sense because they want more humane and cost-effective things that are alternative to prohibition and using science, not misguided moralism around cannabis. And they talk about Alex Berenson's science fiction book and call it Reefer Madness, the marijuana violence
thing, right?
book. But they also say that they acknowledge that cannabis can trigger or worsen psychosis. So they have this, and they've spent years educating the public about this risk from cannabis. But at the same time, they seem to be supporting regulation of these products and these processes. So it's kind of this like balance where they are still worried about these negative health effects, where they say anything would be better than prohibition. Well, not anything, but sensible regulations or cost-effective alternatives to prohibition, because prohibition is very expensive. So it's still conservative, but it's surprising that you'd see these two physicians. So they're all three of them are doctors, but especially a former Surgeon General.
Psychosis triggers. How
From
wide is
smoking.
that? I mean, aren't there other triggers that
Yeah, it's a factor. It's not a
factor?
cause.
Okay,
So
it's not causal. It's a
yeah, and that's
All
what
right.
a lot of people confuse, is that it's just
Okay.
of the many things that happen, and usually it just kind of unmasks the condition. So people who are predisposed to it, sometimes there's a small percentage of them who are vulnerable who use cannabis, and then they're like, oh, I realize I have this condition in the most conceptual sense, but
Sure.
sometimes it does unmask conditions.
Sure.
Okay, well, I can't believe I got you guys with one. This is amazing.
Damn.
All right.
Damn it.
Our next one is, and I got about 5 political news ones, and then I got about 5 science ones. So our next news and policy one is Washington State governor and presidential candidate implies he consumed high-quality marijuana in the 70s during an interview. So the Washington State governor went on air and talked about cannabis was really good in the 70s, and he basically consumed, he knew there was high-quality cannabis back then.
I'll say that's true.
I'll
I'll say he did it.
I bet he did it, but I don't think he admitted it. So I'll say
Well,
it's
I
false.
mean, have you seen him speak? He seems.
Oh,
he seems.
Jay
like
Inslee, yeah.
Oh,
seems
Jay
like a
Inslee?
down to earth.
Is he righty
dude.
or left?
No, he's left.
He's a Democrat.
He's Democrat.
But would he go?
He's done a lot of work for the state of Washington too, man.
Hmm.
A lot of good things. So, yeah, I'm gonna say,
Is it true?
yeah, shoot. Why wouldn't he admit it? Clinton did, right?
Sure did. I inhaled.
I'm smoking right
Isn't
now.
that funny that actually used to be an issue? Was like,
Right.
You know,
Did
like-
inhale?
but I didn't inhale.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, first off, we knew he was lying.
Of
'Cause
course.
the
Exactly.
fucker lied.
Right.
about-
Twice.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably more than
And
twice.
oh yeah. But that was such an issue. Like what?
who doesn't
even-
inhale, stupid? Like the
Right.
cokeheads say, I didn't
I
sniff
smelled
it.
it, but I didn't sniff
Right. I
it.
just smelled it.
I smelled, but I didn't insufflate.
Insufflation.
Don't we
Leave
know
that
a girl
up to
named
Yeah.
Jahan. Leave that
Daddy was a coke dealer.
Daddy was a coke dealer.
All right, Jen. Do you think the Washington State governor discussed in an interview that he consumed high-quality marijuana in the 70s?
Yes.
We're all
I'm just gonna stick to no. I don't know why I just say no.
Because you're probably right.
on Pod Save America earlier this week.
Damn it.
Washington State governor implied that he had consumed high-quality marijuana in the 70s during a discussion about cannabis potency.
Wow.
So I think he's really pushing for that presidential
Nice.
candidacy.
He's being honest and forthright. So
I'd like to know if he tasted anything in
recent
past
days,
recent.
yeah, like birthday cake. Or
yeah,
something, you know what I
exact
mean?
Skittles,
Right.
Skittles.
something like that. Now, that
Forbidden
would be
fruit.
yeah. Oh my
That's the
goodness,
dirty one,
That's
yeah.
the dirty.
Can I
funky.
just do a shout
Mr.
out right
Coffin.
now to
Sure.
Miles? He just saved us.
Right on,
He's
Miles.
got us,
Miles is the man,
he
dog.
set up
Miles.
with me with a computer, so I'm
Nice.
actually going to be able to be corresponding
Interactive.
with. Yes,
There it
thank
is.
you,
Nice.
Miles. And I love you have Robert Smith on your laptop too, because I love Robert Smith. Anywho,
Excellent.
all right,
All right.
that was a good one. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have expected that, to be honest with you. That
Mm.
that
Yeah,
back
it's
then they would've
surprising.
had
I
that.
think a lot of these guys are going to start to
Good
come
for
clean
them.
because like this, it's different. I mean, they're listening to what people are saying. We want someone different. We want a whole new group of different people to run. We don't. This same old is done. We're done with the same old.
Right.
Come up. Be honest. Tell the truth.
Cool.
All right.
And marijuana's taking off in America, so you might get some dude to say, "Oh wow, I'm going to vote for that guy who smokes."
Damn right.
You know, he's like me.
Like I can trust.
Oh,
him
I can
then.
relate to
Yeah,
that
Trust
dude.
his ass.
Absolutely.
And he still
That's-
look like you should see him. His eyes always look a little bloodshot.
Does
A
it?
little glossy.
And he
Yeah,
knows.
Yeah, he knows.
He's
It's
not
it's
taking
legal
a-
in the state of Washington.
Yeah, he knows.
She's not taking us to war
Who?
because it can be a she. You know.
That's right.
That's
All
right.
right,
I
all right.
know. We're
That's
using
right.
all pronouns.
No, I like
Nice.
that.
But seriously,
No, for
imagine. Do you think we would, if we had a president? Do you think that was a regular user? Do you think we would be in all these wars?
Nope.
I don't think they would either.
Nope. Especially if other countries had female leaders also.
Well, especially if we had a female leader. Yeah. But okay, sorry,
Well,
I
what we
digress.
should
I
have
was
done
talking
is
about.
pay more attention to America and not so much the outside world, only when need be. But
All
that's a whole
right.
other dynamic.
Okay, so we all know the CBD craze. People are putting CBD in everything. So is this next one a finding? Is it fact? is it a fiction that I made up right before the show? Taco Bell announces plans to release CBD Chalupa Chill Out Meal, available April 20th.
That's
Taco
some bullshit.
Bullshit.
That's bullshit too. Oh my
All
god.
right,
all
because
of
I
it.
gotta blow them up. Because Taco Bell, 40% of their beef is made out of oatmeal, dude.
Yeah.
Which
so the
Really?
other 60%,
and I haven't been since.
and
Is it TVP or is it just oatmeal?
It's straight oatmeal.
oatmeal, like Quaker Oats.
Yeah, they just like cutting their beef
Mhm.
with
Oh my
oatmeal.
With
God.
And
oatmeal.
I
If
was
I
like,
wanted oatmeal, I'd eat breakfast. God damn it.
Well,
I'd
now
go to
you
the
can go
Evans
to Taco
family.
I
Bell
don't go
for
to Taco
breakfast.
Bell
anymore.
I go to Taco Bell just in case I need to move about. It turns out to be a great laxative.
Just say that.
It's the truth, though. Taco
Oh,
Bell. The truth.
Oh my god.
All right,
Love you
all right,
guys.
all right.
Oh
Well,
my God,
We're gonna get
y'all
a
are
call.
Yeah. Hey, if you stop talking about us, we'll endorse you.
We'll
All
get
right.
you free chalupas.
all right.
No,
all right.
thank you.
Well, maybe you'll believe this next one.
Maybe.
Carl's Jr. announces trial run of CBD burger called the Rocky Mountain High Burger.
Carl's Jr. Is that place still open?
They're struggling, dude. They're struggling so much. I can't. I mean, they were in LA, remember?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember.
they
They
own
got the star,
Hardee's,
right?
don't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
they're
It's like
right. They're
Hardee's.
also Hardee's.
Yeah,
Hardee's.
down
Delaware.
south. Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
Carl's Jr. going to do a trial run of a CBD burger? We know that Taco Bell isn't doing the CBD chalupa, but is Carl's Jr. going to release the CBD burger?
Nah.
Roy Rogers is.
Roy was bothead.
Yeah.
So you guys saying no? Thumbs down?
I abstain, Your Honor. I need to
I'm gonna
abstain.
Say that. That's some crock of shit.
You're
The
wrong,
The
guys.
company announced for one
Ah.
day only at one location in Colorado on April 20th, they will sell a CBD burger under the
Happy
name
4th.
Rocky
Wow.
Mountain High Burger.
Really?
Hi, I
I hope
love
it's
it.
a veggie patty and not like a
no,
beef.
it's gonna.
Really?
They did partner with a veggie meat company,
That's what I'm saying.
but I think it's going to be a meat patty. So I think it's perfect for fast food. You already have no idea what you're eating. Let's add some mysterious.
Let's just tell them it. We're gonna put CBD in it.
Yeah.
They'll do it. Hey, give me a Rocky Mountain. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
Rocky
Yeah.
Mountain is high.
Yes.
Damn it! I'm sick of all of it.
Oh,
Can't
yeah,
okay.
extra.
All right. So
Oh, y'all are
one or
funny.
two more business
Can
headlines.
you roll a joint and shut up?
Yeah,
dude? I
and then
mean,
go get a
geez.
burger.
Go and then we go get burgers. How about that old-fashioned way? Gee whiz.
Why do we make them ourselves then?
Yeah, make them.
All right. So this next one's a little more serious, but the vaping company that used to operate Juul is seeking to inhale $400 million in funding for a cannabis vape. Is this a true story, or did I make this up? The vape company that used to operate Juul is seeking to inhale $400 million in funding for a cannabis vape. The company that used to operate Juul is Pax Labs.
Yep.
So are they going full steam into, after making all that money off of Juul, who's now separate from their company? Are they going headfirst into making cannabis vapes?
I thought Pax was in. Pax just does tobacco vape, but I thought they were
Pac-
in.
I thought they were in already too,
Me
because
too.
I have a pack.
I have
I've
a
gotten
Pax,
the
too.
oil. I've gotten the oils.
Oh, you're tricking us here.
Yeah.
They gotta be in.
I don't
Well,
know.
they already made an
already
herbal
in.
vaporizer, but for oils, the next generation, they're doing a new fundraising race, right?
I think
the
that's
story.
true.
I'm gonna say no.
No.
You don't think they're asking people to invest $400 million for
Oh,
the
yeah.
next generation vape?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna say no.
I'm gonna say yeah.
So apparently, Pax Labs is full on hitching its start at Cannabis
Oh.
Labs. According to the San Francisco Business Journal,
Mm.
they're seeking $400 million in fundraising after Juul Labs spun out of its operations.
They'll get it too. I watch.
Wow.
Oh.
Damn. What else?
Let's see. We can move into a little science here if you guys are ready.
Yes. Hi, science.
Okay. So with the spirit of 420, I found some and wrote some science articles. So did a federal agency recently release a report evaluating police officers' exposure to cannabis smoke at concerts, with the recommendation that those officers who are bothered by marijuana smoke and its effects should just be assigned to other locations?
Are they afraid their officers are going to be hotboxed?
I mean, how long is that probably been
I know.
going on?
I would think they would be like,
Oh,
"Hey, can I
yeah.
go to that concert?
Right.
I'll work that one."
We don't need.
I'm
Wow.
just kidding.
Can you repeat
Yeah,
that?
So,
that's interesting.
So, did a recent study conducted by a federal agency on police officer exposure to cannabis smoke conclude that because, half of the officers basically tested positive for THC, did they conclude that, they should just have those officers who are bothered by marijuana smoke and its effect should just be assigned to other locations where there isn't?
I'll say false. Reason why, I'm guessing most concerts, don't they use private security companies, and the police are outside of the stadium once the patrons come outside, so they're not.
Would it change your mind if it was an open air stadium? Like a football stadium?
Well, see, in that
You're
case,
throwing all these variables now.
Then it would
Smoke
just
wouldn't
dissipate. And
bother
yeah,
them,
I'm gonna say
right?
false.
I'm gonna say false.
I'm going to say false.
No, don't. Do the opposite.
I'm going to say true.
Yeah,
True.
because that's the right answer.
I love that we're hedging our bets now.
So, according to a report issued by the Center for Disease Control,
Dude.
evaluating police officer exposure to cannabis smoke at open air stadium events. So
Thank you,
basically,
sir.
they've got police officers who worked in and around areas within like football stadiums with over 50,000 capacity, and they were assigned to patrol on foot, bicycles, small vehicles before, after, and during concert events. 66% of them basically failed a standard urine test after the event, and 20% of them reported symptoms like red eye, dry mouth, headache, and coughing.
That's because they was actually
They would
smoking.
smoke. Them motherfuckers
Yeah,
smoking.
they was
dude.
smoking.
Come on, bro.
They were being hotboxed.
Or what?
I mean,
Please.
as paranoid as smokers are, you see the cops coming. I mean, it's
What?
not that open society. You keep.
And not to mention, a cop will tap you right on your bottom right over here and be like, "Yo, give me some of that."
Yeah. Right.
I love this bag.
Is that police code for marijuana? Give me some of that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, actually, they just make grunts and sounds.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
I love this bag.
But I couldn't believe that their simple recommendation was one to encourage police officers to report any effects they felt from being exposed at these events. But they usually said, hey, if you don't like secondhand marijuana smoke, you should be assigned to another location.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right.
It's interesting though when you deal with people who have worked in the police industry, or have worked in some kind of like armed forces or police officers. We know some people who deal with regulations who came from that, so they were always busting people for it, and now they're on the flip side. And it was fascinating to me how differently they feel about it now, having seen what it does to someone to help people. It's like, that was a really
Right.
good thing. You know who I'm talking about, right, Jahan?
I think
Yeah.
so.
So you've heard testimony out of the mouth.
Of a former police officer, a military guy.
From
I
the
think
cop
he
on the
was.
horse's mouth.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. Anywho.
All right. Okay, excellent. So we'll put that link in our show notes from the CDC about this interesting report. So when you're out there at 420, if you're at a concert event, just be kind to those officers.
Yeah.
Yeah, blow the smoke.
Don't blow it in
Don't
front
blow
of
it
them.
in their face.
Yeah. Because their eyes are sensitive.
I want to see who I'm shooting.
Damn it!
Oh my God.
There you go.
Is that him? I don't know. Go ahead, fire. You know?
Oh my God, Randy. You're too funny. You're so funny.
Okay, so our next study is a little more serious,
Uh-oh.
but it
Oh,
also
here we
has to
go.
do with cannabis exposure. So did a recent study find that the air quality of cannabis smoking households is linked to a greater number of adverse health outcomes? And did they conclude that it's due to the effects of the drug, like in the air?
Say, all right. So,
So-
time out.
Okay, I
Say that
figured
again?
that
Say
one.
that again?
So a recent study looking at air quality in households, they tried to link cannabis smoking to a greater number of health issues.
Nope. I just left the hazmat folks, and literally they were at this meeting. I know it sounds funny, but they really were. That's one of the programs that might be at this.
Did they spray you down for you left? How was you gonna bring that shit up in here? Not you! Oh shit!
Anyway,
So
what?
the point I was making is it vacuums the air. I would imagine when they check that filter and stuff, it's mold, it's other, airborne
Yeah.
crap that's being filtered out of that.
Sure.
Right.
And marijuana residue that's left in the air isn't, I mean, if it's not proven to cause when you inhale from the joint or the bong itself, why? So I'll say there's 100 other things in the air that are causing issues.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Like gas. After having one of them chalupas.
An oatmeal chalupa.
An oatmeal chalupa. Yeah.
So, Jan, what do you think? Do you think there was let's say this study happened, but did they find that it was linked to more adverse events, health outcomes?
You should go with what Randy said.
I'm saying no.
Okay.
I'm going to go opposite that.
So you're going to say yes.
That's right.
We're opposites today,
So-
then. I'm going to say
I'm
yes.
just going
You're
to give y'all
say
the
no?
right answers.
So it is a trick question because it is a real study. They did find it linked to
There you go.
adverse health outcomes, but it was no different than household smoking cigarettes. They found that this indoor cannabis smoking is just due to the particulate matter and not actually because of the drug, the resin, as you had mentioned. Like there's
Right.
other things. So it just has probably to do more with the air quality in the household.
That's just the point I was making.
But the things they looked at were like ear infection, skin conditions, bronchitis, emergency room visits, and they really didn't find any significant
Cause and effect from that.
So as you're out there getting exposed to cannabis, probably the most harmful thing about it appears to be the smoke, according to this study, just in terms of it being smoke.
So essentially, what we're going to do is see now. We're going to see air filters that are coming out too.
Yeah.
To
Funny
take
you
out the
should-
CBD
cannabis.
air filter.
Yeah.
Damn it! That's a new business idea.
So that's
people.
actually what they did. They placed air
is.
monitors in 300 homes
really.
and monitored the quality of the air, and like that surveyed these people, like how much you smoking, what are you smoking.
Oh, I love it. I
Once
love
they
it,
took
love
into account cigarette smoking, that was like there was no link, no difference.
it. Mm-mm.
All right. So our next study, is this a finding or is this fiction? A study concluded that producing THC and CBD in yeast could be inherently dangerous for consumers. Researchers cite concern over CBD's polymorphic structure that results in versions of CBD, which the differences are unknown from the natural compound. They also cite that the number of unintentional compounds produced with unknown effects or toxicity is inevitable. So a study concluding that producing THC in yeast could be inherently dangerous for consumers. People are all interested in making cannabis and tequila, making cannabis compounds with yeast.
Mm-hmm.
Where
You
researchers
mean yeast that you bake bread with?
Yeah.
That's where you're tricking us here. You're tricking
Yeah.
us. I
Mm-hmm.
What?
because if you make brownies or any other bread, why does the have to be affected on the yeast level?
well, what they're doing is I'm talking about there's
Because the yeast level ran. That's
they're
when you let it sit. How it?
No, I'm
Makes
saying
they're
if
splicing
you're gonna
genes
add
into yeast
so
to
the yeast
is
is
making it. Sorry
I
to clarify
see.
that. So there's
All
these
right,
companies
I see
have
when you say
announced
that.
these strains of yeast that they want to use genetically altered to have them be the cannabis factories instead of the plant.
And there's
See?
a problem because they can't figure out what this new yeast or cannabis or
Yeah, researchers are
CBD
saying,
is gonna be like.
did researchers conclude that producing THC and CBD
THC.
with genetically modified yeast is basically could be really dangerous for
That's
consumers?
true. I think it's true with that added explanation.
Do you think it's true, or do you think it was an actual study conducted?
Oh, wait. You can't give us two things.
I'm gonna call bullshit on it
Why?
because it just sounds like it. Let's go splice it into yeast. What? Is there a yeast seed? Wait a minute. What do you get yeast from? How do you build yeast? Don't you build yeast from something else? Another you know what I mean?
No.
It's not like a plant, is it?
Yeast.
No.
Yeah.
It's
They
a
can
live
grow-
bacteria.
Okay, but how do you gonna
Anything you genetically splice, you could break down to a certain level. I don't know if they're doing this shit, but you could break it down.
All right.
I will tell
let's
you
ask
that
Dr.
people
J.
have claimed that they have made these yeast that produce cannabinoids,
I'm-
and little is
Right.
known about them.
Huh.
But our
Huh.
researchers studying it, and what do researchers say about it?
I say yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this is BS.
So I just made this up.
Oh.
But it is true that people are splicing
Oh.
genes from the
Yeah,
cannabis
okay.
plant into yeast to try and grow vats of these
Yep.
cannabis compounds. But I made up this thing about the study. This is just from my own bias. I'm like, what is this yeast making? We like
Yeah.
cannabis has been growing for millions of years. It's got it down.
Exactly.
Now you're going to put it into this other machine, this other
Exactly.
bio machine to start spitting out compounds.
Right.
No researchers are really studying if there are differences between those compounds being spit out by the yeast.
Yep.
Or things. So another idea for a research project.
Oh,
They're looking at
gosh.
the end
Don't add
product.
any more on our plate right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, cool. Cool. So what's next then?
All right. Did a recent study conclude that the use of synthetic cannabinoids is associated with more mental health problems compared to natural cannabis? You know, like the spice and
Spice
the
and
K2.
Yeah, you
Yes.
make you eat somebody's face, right?
I'd
That's
say
the,
true.
that's the
Yeah.
face eater.
But has it been concluded in research? Did researchers actually want to get to the bottom of this? I mean, we think it's a real fact, but
Right.
logically.
I mean, all I got to see is the face eating. I don't need any more analyzing after that.
So you guys think it's a
So
real
wait.
study?
Wait,
no,
wait.
it's not
Hold
a real
on.
study. You
So
just
you-
made that up.
Well, sure. The use of synthetic cannabinoids is associated with more mental health problems compared to natural cannabis. Is this a published finding, or is this a
I don't think
fiction?
it's a published finding,
Written
but
fiction.
I think it's real.
You guys think it's science fiction? It's real, but it's the science fiction headline I made up.
Yep.
It's a real one.
It's a real issue, though. Yeah,
It
K2 and spice causes all sorts of problems. In fact, that was one of the reasons we did the consumer warning with our research center, because there was a study that found that the CBD had CBD oil that was tested had all of these components that were found in K2, right? And that people are taking CBD thinking they're like helping their anxiety, but they were actually potentially exacerbating it because of the chemicals that were in the formulas.
These are people who are prescribed real, and
they were buying it from
Recreation.
actually a reputable, well, not reputable, but a
Mm.
well-known brand. And the researchers at Virginia Commonwealth University looked at this brand and found all sorts of things in the
Like
CBD.
DXM, dextromorphan in it,
Yeah.
and all sorts of stuff. And I love the comment from the
Oh my
CEO.
God.
He's like, "Yeah, somebody's putting that in there."
Yeah,
Yeah,
he actually wanted to say that he thought that someone was spiking it. You know, it was like, you
what?
little shit. This is
Did
a
he say that?
safety. Yeah. The quote was just abominable. I think we talked about this
Yeah,
before.
Yeah, it's an
But-
ongoing issue.
Yeah.
So while this is a real issue and something we can observe and think logically this would be true,
But
it has also been concluded in the Journal of Psychopharmacology in Berlin. Researchers from the Department of Drug Monitoring in Utrecht and also in other countries have studied this in 367 users of synthetic cannabinoids and natural cannabis and found higher rates of drug abuse, sleep problems, depression, anxiety, and other mental health problems. Another problem with these synthetic drug things is that most of the times just some guy in his garage with like a sprayer just spraying the compounds on some plant material like Damiana or
Right.
something else that
Which
you
looks like marijuana.
yeah, it has
And I was in Utrecht, by the way.
it's a nice place, lots
Yeah.
of bicycles.
I
What's
had a
I
that?
ball.
love,
It's in Holland.
I love the Netherlands.
Yeah, I had a ball out there.
All right, so our next study with all
We
this
should do a live podcast from there.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Let's do it.
Business right off.
Let's go right now.
Wait, Miles is
Playing
over there.
Broadway.
He's like,
We
can
are
I
here in
go?
Amsterdam.
Our sound engineer
Like
wants to go
Amsterdam,
too.
yeah.
Sure.
someone has to bring the sound equipment.
That'd be hilarious. He's just bogged down with a bunch of
And
bags.
we're like, hey, we're going to the coffee shop.
Although you have to be careful when you travel with sound equipment and laptops for events regarding cannabis in Europe. We went to one in Hungary for a research conference, and the guy who was running the conference, a real science conference, they unscrewed his laptops to look and see if there was like cannabis bricks in them and things like that.
Serious?
Yeah.
In
That-
Hungary?
Yeah, like going, it's crazy,
Like,
right?
who's
Oh.
smuggling shit in your starving ass country, dude? You can't make any money selling shit any old way, dude. Please.
Oh my
Why do you think they
God.
call it Hungry?
Ah, damn it.
All right.
Oh, you guys are nuts.
Well, they must have some seriously strict drug laws in Hungary.
Goodness gracious.
I think they kind of make it up as they go along in some of
Oh,
those countries.
Sounds
But-
like it.
But-
Unscrew it.
okay, so wait, hold on. I want to go back to K2 and spice for a second. because
You know where
we
you can
also
get it?
well
Your
usually
local gas station.
yeah, and it's really used a lot by teenagers because they can't get access to legal weed or
Except
access
in the
to
hood.
good weed.
The hood kids don't, because they got the real shit.
Right,
So, you
but
know, they're like, what?
And in the
But
military.
Spice.
Look,
And-
fucking spice,
right,
you know?
Spice.
and in places where people don't feel like they're
Right.
gonna they don't have access to it. And so this is where I kind of, it kills me with like legalization, that this is a side effect of prohibition. You know what I mean? That we're having these synthetic chemicals now. People are using them. People are going to want to get high regardless. I mean, that's just a fact of life, whether
Right.
it's having a glass of wine, or taking a hit, or just like even going on a roller coaster that makes you out of your, you know what I
Right.
mean? Kind of out of your senses.
Right.
We seek something.
Yeah.
I
different.
like
And-
roller coasters.
But
Sleepy
so,
time tea.
right.
I remember the first, I swear, my pop has never smoked a joint in his life. Me and him, I was about 5th grade, drank we each drank half a cup of Sleepy Time. We were like dope fiends. Like, I could not believe this shit really works. You know? I mean, this
that does.
knocks
It's
you
the
out.
mint and chamomile.
Yeah, knocks you out.
It does.
Yeah.
God, we
You get a
digress.
little sleepy time.
No,
Get past that chamomile lozenge.
yeah, exactly.
Like, a lot of people talk about the hazards of butane extraction. You mentioned chamomile. They do actually do butane extractions of a lot of natural products
Mhm.
to really concentrate them and stuff like that. So
What does that do to people?
what?
Explain butane.
Well,
extraction.
butane exposure, one of the side effects is euphoria followed by a headache. But-
It's called
but-
huffing.
yeah, yeah.
Huffing.
It is
Sound
found
like
in some
whippets.
extracts. Yeah, it is found in some extracts in significant quantities, but usually it's purged out in the process. If you have a closed loop system, it can be quite effective. But if you're just doing it in your living room, you're prone to blow yourself up. There's a lot of videos on the internet
No,
of people.
They call that
that
the
wasn't what
Richard.
I was at. I was asking, like, does that affect? I mean, like, why do how
People-
does it affect people, or does it affect people?
Well, it is a toxic gas, but I don't know how it affects the products. No
Right.
one really knows
Wow.
if it does.
So
It'll burn
there-
your eyebrows off.
70% of your skin.
And right off.
Wait, is that
I
Richard
can't say it.
Pryor?
Yeah,
Oh.
I didn't say it.
Oh
I don't think he was smoking butane hash.
no,
No.
he wasn't.
Oh,
but
but
he was using
a butane lighter.
Yeah, he had that light.
That
That
stuff
torch.
is part of the reason it's dangerous is because it collects on the floor. It doesn't like rise up, and so even if you're doing it like outdoors, you can still create a nice big fireball.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
All right.
Don't have a Jerry curl.
You hear that, crackheads?
You hear that crack? It's funny. Oh my God.
All
Okay.
right. So our next study is about the drug ketamine. So we all know ketamine is being used for antidepressant properties. Did researchers conclude after a study that the antidepressant effects of ketamine are through cannabinoid receptors? So did researchers conclude that ketamine is acting through the same system as cannabis for its antidepressant effects?
Yes.
Isn't there another ailment that ketamine is used for?
It's
mostly for depression
It's depression.
or date rape. But that's
no, that's GHB.
GHB.
Like, hold on, what? Holy God.
Okay, I'm
Jesus.
wrong.
What have you been putting in our
Your
drinks?
Honor, I thought I was on ketamine. I just started humping on it. I didn't mean to.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Oh
Oh my God.
I'll say true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going. I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can you do that?
2 votes with yes.
If I know the answer, yes.
But that
Well,
doesn't.
You got to take a yes or a no, right?
Okay, go ahead.
So this is true,
So you have
according
to-
to the Journal of Biomed Pharmacotherapy. Researchers from Tehran basically found that in mice that they could block the antidepressant effects of ketamine by blocking the receptors for THC. So now they're thinking that there's this crosstalk between ketamine's beneficial effects and the endocannabinoid system. So without cannabinoid receptors functioning, you may not get that antidepressant effect from ketamine. It's a fascinating thing as ketamine is going into clinical studies.
Yep.
But I mean,
yep,
how?
yep,
how-
yep. It's fascinating.
Fun stuff. All right.
It's amazing to me, like how the endocannabinoid system affects moods and mood regulation and stuff like that. So it's really cool.
So one more story, I think. All right. So we'll do one more, and then we could see if the callers are ready, or talk about April 20th.
All right.
All right. Well, our last headline: did researchers conclude that? Did researchers publish an article detailing strategies for producing giant hemp seeds and cannabis crops? Did researchers publish an article recently detailing strategies for producing giant hemp seeds and cannabis crops?
Giant hemp seeds, meaning like the size of the seed itself, or how big the hemp will grow?
Both the size of the seeds and the harvest, if you're growing for seeds.
Sounds like bullshit.
Sound like Jack and the Beanstalk.
It does,
Jack
right?
and the
Like
weed
there's-
stalk.
And the what? Weed stalk.
That's a whole other story. That's about, you
Oh
know,
my
stealing
God.
it.
Oh my God.
Stealing another man's weed. Jack and the Beanstalk. The weed stalk. You know what I mean?
Jack and the weed stock.
Yeah, Jack
See,
that
that's
weed.
a good. That's a good
I'll write it.
story. Anyway, I think it's fake.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with true.
According to the Journal of Genetic Resources and Crop Evaluation, researchers detailed how you could produce giant hemp seed and cannabis crops, and urged the need to develop public gene bank collections of cannabis, very critical of cannabis producers for their short-sightedness for eliminating cannabis germplasm. They say there's a lot of biodiversity, that genetic diversity we're missing out on, and there needs to be more R&D on actually producing new cannabis varieties. So not just getting clones and growing clones and growing clones, but like actually breeding the plants for different properties, and you could produce some really unique things, improve efficiency, improve standardization, and things like that.
Cool.
But I think that's another great idea. Start your cannabis gene bank.
Hey,
All right.
Can
Cool.
you deposit?
Monsanto's probably beat us to it.
Monsanto's? Oh, God. Those
Oh,
There are
They are
hemp
evil.
seeds in the world seed bank, but not a huge genetic diversity. I mean, this used to be a concern back in the day when there were tons of raids by the DEA. Is if someone had a unique variety of cannabis and they got raided, those genetics were gone because people don't share their IP, their property.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that probably have been lost to time because there's no way to preserve them. But,
Right. Okay. Cool.
All right. All right. Well, let's move into a discussion about what April 20th is and what it means to each of us. I don't know if you guys have ever celebrated on 420. So for those of you who don't know, April 20th is just generally a time when people who like cannabis intend to spend the entire day completely stoned, which is in complete contrast to how they spend the 19th.
Or the 18th, or the day before
or the
that.
21st.
Right.
But this is typically a day with tons of cannabis-friendly events. Leading up to this, we've seen events like the Michigan Hash Bash and other events, but have been no arrests, no major issues, and even support from local politicians and things like that.
Is this
No
the
arrests at
holiday
the
where
event.
Father Weed comes down and delivers like hemp socks to all the nice kids? I
You
think
get
that
a
should
hemp
be
rock if you were bad.
hemp rock.
A rock in
Yeah.
that bag.
Yeah. It's a piece of coal wrapped in hemp.
Or it's a piece of crack.
A piece of crack.
You don't deserve it.
You got to do
Give
that.
you rocks is what you get.
Can you
I'll give you a
imagine?
habit.
Wait, what would decorating the tree look like for
Oh,
420? Oh my God!
That's
Another
a good
idea. God,
It's a good
Damn it.
ass idea.
Well,
Contest. We should have people.
yeah.
What,
Okay,
next
nothing.
420?
Anyway,
What?
nope.
decorate shit.
Yeah,
What would you decorate it with?
I would.
Oh yeah.
Man, I do small.
Yeah, a
Little
like,
ornaments.
Yeah.
Like what?
I would have like
joints
roach
and-
clips with
Oh,
danglies holding things down on it.
I do. That's
How would
a
you-
hell idea.
Mhm. Yep.
Just write it down. We should next year's
420
contest.
trio, 420 tree.
So I'm a little bit older than them. Like
Who?
you know, I think when it got popular was after
What got popular?
the
420?
420. So like, you know,
Well,
when I was
the
in high
first
school,
time I ever
don't
heard of
remember.
420, it had to do with Homeboy's birthdays. I mean, not Homeboy, but that tyrant's birthday
Mm.
from the Second World War. That's his
Whose?
birthday, Adolf Hitler.
Really?
That's the first time I ever heard about
I never even knew
420.
that.
Oh, I know.
It was a few years, like in the past 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
That it's been.
But when we was young, they weren't
Wait,
celebrating.
when did
There
they
wasn't
start it,
420.
Jay?
When did it? What year did that get?
I don't.
Dr. J?
It is unclear exactly what year it
Mhm.
has started, and I've heard a lot of reasons where 420 comes from. A lot of stupid reasons. One reason someone told me was because marijuana is passed in a circle, and there are 420 degrees in a circle. But
I heard it was because that's the code that the cops use.
No, I think you
remember
told
me,
No.
brother. Huh?
I
420, man.
Huh?
Shoot you 420 times.
420 bullets, man. I'll put it in your back. That's interesting.
But actually, it
the
is
police code, right?
no.
No?
That police code, as you said earlier, is I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, but it actually is said to
we
come.
actually went through that.
Remember-
one time.
and remember how he took
how
it?
he took
He
it?
took it
I
from us and then he
like
looked at
this.
us like, well, you can go now.
Yeah. I'm not going to
And
spell
here's
it.
the kicker. We walked like, what, 15, 20 steps?
Yeah, and look
We turned back and him and his partner, they were gone.
gone. I mean, took it like this.
Wait.
Like this. Like, yo,
Easy.
careful, don't spill
Don't
nothing. You want me to
spill
arrest you?
They gotta
They
take
smoked
it to
that
the
good
crime
shit.
lab.
And they put it.
Oh, the
Say
way
what?
that was the first thing he and I noticed.
Look
It's like, yo,
back.
did you see the way he took it? It's like, yo, Jan, I can't roll this. Will you roll
Right.
it?
Would
And
you
you
roll
know how
it?
to take it to
Yeah.
roll it.
Between two fingers, and he was like, all right,
Yes.
go
I
ahead,
had
keep walking.
He's like, what do you have there? I was like,
He is
he's like, yo,
definitely-
give me that.
He
Yeah.
is definitely wanting to go to the concerts.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
not
he
one
was,
opting
no,
out.
he was one. Yeah, he was
Oh
on his
my
I'll
God.
never forget that
But
shit.
I have to tell you,
Turn around like Jesus.
And here's the kicker. He said to us, you got any more? I
Right.
said, no. Randy said, yes.
I got scared. I didn't know where motherfucker.
And then he took Randy's
They
bag.
took my shit and sent us on the way.
When was this?
Oh,
was,
like
I don't
10
know,
years?
Yeah,
Oh
10,
my
15
God.
years
Yeah,
ago.
this is
Oh
wild,
my
yeah.
God. Oh my God.
I
He's
got
like, you got
scared.
any more? He goes, no.
Yes.
he's nodding yes. I love it. I
And
love
I'm
it.
looking over at this man like, come
I
on.
Like, come on,
figured he
Randy.
took his. You know, I've been sick.
Randy's too
Remember
nice.
that
He's
time
gonna
I-
be like
remember
Mr.
that time I
Honest.
rolled the perfect blunt in the blizzard?
Oh my
Oh
god.
my God.
No gloves.
No gloves.
I couldn't.
Bing.
Oh my
Nice.
God. I have to tell you, I never heard of 420 till around 10 years ago.
Yeah. it's
And
15.
I never really heard of it. And when I heard of it, we were having, where I used to live, we were having a big community dinner that night. And so I baked like dozens of cookies, like my kind of cookies that I
Mhm.
like to bake very well. And I started handing them out. I got the entire town almost stoned. We're sitting in line to get our food, and all of a sudden people just start laughing and laughing and laughing. The entire place, we were all high, and they were really strong too. In fact, our friend Pat, he called himself Bubbles, so he has a new nickname as a result. It was a nutty night that night. It was a good night.
Wasn't there a rumor they used to give bags away on some day in the city? And
420.
420.
There was
And
a
then
rumor,
we
yeah, down
never-
at the meadow.
in
or
the
whatever,
meadow, yeah, have a whole bunch of kids
But
waiting
see,
down
you
there.
can have your huff socks out,
Right.
and Father Weed
There
will
you
come
go.
and deposit your weed in your socks
If you're good.
If you're good. Otherwise, you get the crack rock.
Yep.
All right. Well,
For the habit.
well, the term 420 is rumored, or legend has it, it comes from a group of high schoolers in Marin who would meet around 420 to consume cannabis in Marin County in the Bay Area. So
4:20 in the afternoon, the crew got together.
that,
That makes sense. Some
Yeah,
Bay Area
yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I
It's
can
an
see that.
Or it's
I
just
hope
an
they got
urban
paid.
legend.
Or the
It was
urban
probably
legend.
Probably
Hallmark
not.
probably
Right.
created the holiday, since they tend to create
Well,
every
they're
other.
getting paid now. I bet.
Yeah, I know.
420 cards.
Do you think?
Well, you
Oh,
shouldn't buy
damn
them
it.
if they come from Hallmark.
Uh,
You should buy them if they come from someone who makes them out of hemp paper and creates a whole system. Don't go and buy. It's like buying marijuana from Marlboro. Don't.
Right. Why do we? And,
They already made their money.
I love it. I
That's
love
my
it.
granddad.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
well, I think I have a caller here if we want to patch him in.
Yeah.
You want
Yep.
to go?
Yeah, we're gonna. We got a caller. Good.
All right.
Wait,
talk
is it
among-
Chris?
No.
No, unfortunately.
No, really, Chris. Oh, I was hoping we were going to get
Chris
Chris to
calling.
call today with his
Yeah.
girlfriend, but that's okay. Oh well, I hope they're okay. I wonder whatever happened, if he ever got like a really good a variety or something like
well,
that.
we got to get Chris back on. I was hoping to have a chance to talk to.
I guess maybe he's on another date with someone else or something.
I think he's still with her.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, I think Chris got a little issues with
his weight.
Yeah, he can't wait to eat.
Oh my God, y'all
Sorry.
are being
Sorry,
nutty.
Sorry about that,
Here we
Chris.
go.
Chris. All right, we have a caller, guys.
Hey,
All right.
And
Ezra, you're live on the podcast. Do you copy?
I do copy. How you doing, guys?
Good.
good. Hey, Ezra.
hey, Ezra.
You're sitting here with Greer, Randy, Jan, and myself. What has you calling us today?
So my question was, in terms of community, like I'm a cannabis scientist. Where do I go to connect with other cannabis scientists, share ideas, network, stuff like that?
You need to come on this podcast for starters.
Well, I've done that. Here I am.
There it is.
Well, there's a bar for cannabis scientists.
yes,
Just
there
kidding.
is.
There's a
spot.
dating website.
Right. We know a spot,
Yeah, we do know a spot.
and it's not called a rehab center.
Are-
Sorry.
Are
Ezra.
there particular types of scientists you're trying to meet? That's a big
Right.
question. You're
That's
looking for
right.
biologists, veterinarians,
social
this is-
scientists?
yeah, we could connect you with social workers interested in cannabis.
Cultivators.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of groups. Well, I'm a chemist.
Ah.
Mm.
We'll definitely find you a
Dr. J.
job. I think there's a high demand for cannabis chemists. I think the one of the best places is the American Chemical Society. It's we founded a subdivision there for cannabis chemistry, and they have
Is this a
meetings.
joke?
No, this is real.
Yeah, this is real.
Oh.
Randy's
That's
like,
just awesome.
yeah.
Oh.
It's hard to believe one of the largest and one of the oldest professional scientific societies in the world has a subdivision devoted entirely to cannabis chemistry. They just had a conference in Florida. They're going to have another one in San Diego coming up in the fall. And they have just content devoted just for cannabis chemists, just for them to meet, share their ideas. So I'd check out the CANN
Can I
subdivision.
ask a question?
Yeah.
How have you impacted the industry with this subdivision, and how have you guys kind of and you know what, Ezra, this is going to be for you. How do you see that this will benefit the cannabis industry by having this kind of group of scientists?
Well, I think it's difficult to overstate the value of scientists being connected,
Mhm.
Right.
right?
Right.
Scientists collaborate, scientists work together, and if they don't know each other,
Yep.
then it makes it a lot harder
Dig
to
it.
collaborate, right?
Right.
But there's the whole joining forces thing too, in terms of I think if scientists get together and are in a place where people can find them, sometimes other people need scientists too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, if we're setting action limits for pesticide detection or for residual solvents, the lawmakers don't necessarily have a good grasp on
That's
that
right.
science, right?
Wow.
So where do they go to get recommendations? And so I think in terms, it's super beneficial for the people who are in the association who are connected, but it's also huge for it's a huge resource.
So tell me, what have you guys done to make an impact? Because most people, I'm fortunate just because I work with Jahan and know a little bit about what you guys do. But tell us, for everyone else listening, how have you guys impacted the industry? Are there any tangible results from things?
Yeah,
that
what
you
has
guys have
science done for us lately?
Yeah.
I mean, we're working on stuff. Yeah. We're working on stuff. A good example is, I can't remember which state, but they said that, you had to be a certified cannabis chemist. And then, the question became, well, okay, who's the certifying body?
Right.
In that
right.
case, it's the National Registry of Certified Chemists. And they came to us,
wow.
came to CANN in order to get, that type of content. What is it that makes a cannabis chemist certifiable?
Ezra,
So,
how do you I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm sitting here
No, go ahead.
daydreaming about, and you said we, so I'm assuming you're talking about the group of cannabis chemists that exist around the world, and I guess you
Like
guys
Dr.
have
J.
like Dr. J here.
Yeah.
So in
You caught me. You caught me on my shill.
yeah,
Damn it.
but
Very
5
cool.
years from now, with how we're seeing things are shaping, how would you shape your network, and how would you guys be best used in making industry and shaping industry?
That's a great.
Well, I think, 5 years from now, we'll probably have our own trade show that is just cannabis chemists and associated companies and things like that.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we like to dream about being like rubber division at
Yeah.
the ACS. They're huge.
Right.
And they do whatever they want because they've got enough money. And cannabis is 10 times bigger than rubber,
Mm.
in terms of industry size.
Mm.
So why shouldn't cannabis chemistry be, the largest group
Mhm.
at ACS,
Can-
or
can- can
or at
I-
least, be able to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
But I think there should be comprehensive and logical standards
Absolutely. Yeah.
of of the way that people are operating in extraction laboratories and analytical laboratories.
Right.
I think the laws should be sensible and reflect that. I think everybody should have the opportunity to consume cannabis without fear of ingesting pesticides.
Right.
Right.
And I think it's all a matter of time, and you remember when snowboarding started? Do you remember it was all
Mhm.
Mhm.
assholes parked sideways on the mountain?
Mhm.
But it's because everybody was learning,
Yep,
right,
Um,
Right.
Mhm.
And now, you can't really say snowboarders are worse than skiers.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Brilliant analogy.
Okay, so let me ask you another question is, what do you think is the biggest threat right now that you see for the cannabis industry?
The Republican
another
Party.
Republican and president.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Okay.
They said it
Yeah,
together.
man.
And he was making a joke. Ezra hit it right on.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
See, I think he's
Yeah.
going to legalize it because he's going to want to get in the money. That's
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he has
Yeah.
investment already, even if he's fronting like he doesn't support.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
a great. That was
Oh,
great
that was
point,
great.
Ezra.
Well, I have to
one
tell
more.
you.
One more. This may
okay.
ask.
Yeah.
So, this is. I speak for Chief and myself.
Mm.
Being in proximity with PhDs and doctors and chemists
Mhm.
coming from the cultivating side and the recreational side, we generally wouldn't cross paths.
No, we wouldn't.
So how do we cross paths more? Because all that's doing for somebody who is on the recreational side is giving them education, allowing them not to guess anymore and be more dialed into exactly what they're doing. And from the cultivation side, you always want to, meet somebody who understands something on the micro level.
420 dating app.
There it is.
And it's for
And
everybody,
everybody
from every
to-
side of it, from recreational
cat
to
is
chemist
shaping
to,
the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how men, women,
What was the question?
I was like, Ezra was like, I'm smoking here. What you say? Like, Ez, do you got like your regular 420 buddies that don't have your level of education and science background in it? I'm sure they feel empowered by having a friend that is like totally.
How do
dialed
guys
in.
like Randy and I come across? Like, we're fortunate because we know both Jan and Dr. J.
Right.
We were asking how do we build something where we can all go to and figure out where we are, like all of these chemists and all of these people who want to grow or recreational or
Right.
just or and both from both sides of it.
Both sides.
Yeah, like that's what he was asking.
Yeah.
Where can
Right.
people meet?
Is there
Well,
an interface?
I think there's probably a lot of groups. I don't really know them because I'm not a grower or
Yeah.
Right.
but I think they're out
Couple
there.
apps.
There's different.
Yep.
There's a lot of different associations that
That's
you
where
could
the
use.
Well,
people-
I have to say, I think that it's so important what you guys are doing around safety and standardization,
definitely.
especially the safety piece, because as a clinician, I'm always concerned about what are my patients using and how are they using it and is it safe? And we've seen, like we were just talking about today about some unregulated CBD products, and I understand that we don't have the regulations right now that we would like to see, but I just really think that what you guys are doing and the conversations you're bringing to the table are so important for all of us. And most people don't understand the nuances around cannabis. So thank you very much.
Jan, a question for you. Do doctors that prescribe Ritalin and other stuff like that controls, do they worry about side effects? Or are they like, this drug has been tested so much that I'm just prescribing?
I'm just prescribing it. I'll let you know briefly what the side effects are. That's what they'll say, but they tend to downplay it because it's gone through the FDA drug approval process.
I see.
And what I still find really upsetting is when they're prescribing benzodiazepines like Klonopin or Xanax, but yet they won't be supportive of their patient with PTSD using cannabis. And those medications, from my perspective, are far more dangerous than cannabis ever could be, just because of the risk of physical dependency.
Yep.
And so I think we have a lot of education. And back to what Ezra and them are doing at CAN, I think that they're really trying to do a great job. They actually helped co-write our press release when we did the consumer warning. So they're fighting the good fight.
They're fighting the good fight.
So one last question before we let Ezra go and bring on our next caller from Philly who has a question about cannabis. Ezra, what's, being a cannabis chemist and a extraction expert, what's one or two of the weirdest things you've encountered in your work with extracts, if you can share?
Sure. Well, there was a lot of this mystery oil that would be included, and it took us a long time to figure out what it was, and it turns out they were a combination of like mercaptans and lubricants, which were used to basically preserve butane, right, in a canister. And so people were using canned butane, and they were adding all this crap. So that was very strange.
Oh my gosh.
So all the impurities in the butane can were ending up in the extract, like the lubricants inside the can and all that.
In the shatter?
Yeah.
Is that what that?
Yeah.
Like you're talking about shatter, yeah?
So it would.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So when you actually started analyzing that stuff, you find a lot
shatter.
of funny.
So the butane and
there.
So
maintenance
this is why people need to buy regulated products and tested products, because you don't know what the world they're having.
Yeah, and then I'll leave you with this one, because I used to run a consulting company, so I get phone calls all the time. And one time somebody called me up, and without so much as introducing themselves, said, "What can you tell me about the CBGBs?"
It was a great club back in the 80s.
The 70s. Blondie played there. The Ramones. And now it's like a clothing store.
If I can be shameless, please let me plug the CAN group. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're CanDChaz, CANNDCHAS.
Okay.
And you can visit our website, cannachem.org, CANNACHEM.org. And we need members. So anybody can join. You can always join just to support our cause, even if you don't think of yourself as a scientist, and maybe you learn something.
Joining.
No,
wait,
Brooklyn
what is
Sprout
it
got
again?
you back.
Can we
We're
tag
joining.
you? Can we tag you?
I'm sorry?
What is it again? CANN
Can he send it to us?
DCHS?
Yeah. I'm happy to send it. I'll send it in CANNACHAM. I'm sorry, CHEM.org.
How
Cannachem.
the hell did I
All
get
right.
these letters?
Thank you so much,
Thank
you,
Ezra.
man.
We might bring you back to tell us some more of your consulting stories later on. That was fascinating.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
The time I had a butane explosion I was in the middle of.
I gotta hear this.
Do we?
Goodness.
That's what. Save it for the sequel.
All right. Bye
Thanks
now.
for calling in, Ezra.
Thanks again.
He tricked us. We thought he was calling in with a question.
I thought he had
That's
a
good.
question about extracts, and he tricked us.
Yeah,
That's
he
great. I'm
extracted
glad
us.
he called because you know what? We need to keep hearing.
And
from
now we know
people.
that there's
Right.
another brilliant doctor out there.
That's right.
Do we have another caller?
Yeah, let me get him on the phone. You guys talk amongst
We
yourselves.
didn't give
Talk
our
amongst
buddy from
yourselves.
Boston a shout
Oh,
out
yeah.
today.
Which buddy from Boston?
What's her name?
Amanda.
Amanda, she's not on.
Oh,
Amanda, we miss you.
Oh,
Amanda,
shit.
in
Yo.
fact, I'm going to tag her right
Yeah,
now.
you tag Amanda.
Wonder
Amanda,
it was
where
weird
are
today.
you?
Yeah,
I
someone's
know, it's
missing.
quiet.
Where's the child, Amanda?
Amanda.
Yo, what the hell is
Boston.
Canatrex?
I don't know. What is it?
I don't know,
Is it
but
Nope.
it's just that billboard I was telling you about.
In New York?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This Uncle Bud's hemp,
What?
natural products for every part of your daily life, right? He has this mask, which supposedly has CBD, whatever.
Oh, my mother had hemp mask today.
For real?
First time. She
Huh.
called me up. Go ahead,
Detoxifying
Martha's
face
getting hip.
mask. They got a dog shampoo, a deodorant. I don't know. It's a giant billboard on 42nd Street, dude. And it says made with Canatrex.
What the
What the
fuck
heck
is
is
I
Canatrax?
Canatrex?
have no clue.
Made with Canatrax.
Now they're just jumping on.
I don't know. That's why I'm like, yo, I would love to have
Well,
the,
you know
the
what?
fucking means
It's
to
a good
test this
thing
thing.
that I can actually Google it right now to
see.
find out what the hell Canatrax is because I have never heard of that.
What street is that?
42nd Street, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Gosh, my
Uncle
man.
Bub's.
Well, we used to scramble that.
Yeah.
What is Canatrax? And it's trademarked.
Wow.
It's the trusted
All right.
family formula.
Are you guys ready for the next caller? He's ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Trusted family formula.
Yeah,
Yeah. For
it's
how long?
Canada-
All
Since
right.
when? EST
Undoubtedly, this is what they're calling their product, Canatrax.
what? Oh, really? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't like that. I don't like no
Oh.
Trex in my
All
cannabis.
All right, on the phone we have Billy from Philly. Are you there?
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
What's good, Billy?
Hey, Billy.
You're here with Greer,
Billy.
Randy, Jan, and myself. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. What is your? We'll let you ask a couple questions, but what's your first cannabis question that you have?
Yeah, so I'm in Pennsylvania, and we believe we're on the path towards recreational, which we're all excited about. And we hear, have either traveled or hear all about kind of the products that become available when things get legal recreationally. So I'm wondering for you guys, like if you're putting something in a dab, are you looking at the live nectar or resins or wax or oils? What do you guys recommend so that when we get the opportunity here, we can go straight for the recommendation?
That's a good question. So, what type of what type of extract do you think you guys is the future, or do you prefer? I know that we've discussed products on here before.
Right.
I'm an old-fashioned guy.
Me
I like
too,
them.
as well.
I like the mechanical pressed products, and you don't
Mhm.
see a lot of them. So I'm hoping that as time moves on and the quality control gets better, the cleanliness of operations get better, we'll see stuff that's like the pressed products, the extracted products made without solvents, but more like mechanical separation. You guys are familiar with
Sure.
dabs.
Sure. Well, I'm traditionalist, so I'm all about the flower and if not the flower, the edible, and a couple of the places that are speakeasies and are happening here in New York. You'll have a huge option once PA goes.
Yeah.
So, I think
I've had a couple dabs, and the ones I've had in New York, they're I guess they were all right, but the ones I had in Las Vegas were off the planet. They were off the chart.
What does that mean to you?
Fantastic. That's slang.
What made them fantastic?
yeah, I was
just
curious
high,
about, like-
the high from it,
Was
And
it
it
real
wasn't-
flavorful, or
It was super flavorful, and all you need is 1-2 hits, and
So how
that
do you-
little bit is huge.
so it's something to look for in a dab? Lots of flavor. You don't need to consume a ton of it. So,
You don't like a couple hits, and you're ready to go.
Sounds like a very pure form. And it was was it like a pale color, or was it like a dark?
I had a couple that were like a brownish, a dark brown sort of color, and then I saw some other stuff, what they refer to as crystals, You know, and
Are you sure that wasn't crystal meth?
Nah, it wasn't crystal meth.
Crystals.
It wasn't crystal.
After I tried that.
No, it wasn't crystal meth. But I'll tell you,
Next thing you know, he's going to start scratching
that
his
was the
skin.
first thing that popped into my mind was crystal meth. So at the same time, this thing could have absolutely been amazing, but being that the title and the way it looked, it turned me off from it. So
That's a great
I
point.
didn't try
Damn
it.
That's a great
because-
point. So maybe one of the recommendations for the market is to make products that do not resemble illicit narcotics that are not good to
Exactly.
consume.
Right. That you're afraid you're going
and
to
it
steal
was yellow
shit.
and oily looking. It smelled fantastic. It really
Right.
did. It
Yellow.
smelled great. But just because it looked crystally, like they were little
Crystally.
crystals, little
Mm.
square boxes almost. And
Mm.
you know, I was just like, yeah, nah. Give me the stuff that look like mud, man.
Well, Billy, I hope that answers your question. You got any other comments from the studio, from the Weed
Well,
Nut
yeah, and I
Gallery?
can just ask this and
Sure.
listen to the response. But, you know, we're all looking forward to a day where it's not state by state. I'm wondering what you guys think. Like, what do you think a critical mass, like a number of states to be recreational before we see anything really possible at the national level?
That's a good question.
I have to say, I want us to get away from the word recreational. So I'm on this like path of us calling it therapeutic. Because if you think about it, what we deem adult use or recreational use is really more therapeutic use. People like to just chill out. They like to go home.
And it's different than
relax.
drinking. It's not going to the liquor store.
Yes, you
It's-
like to
that's
go to
different.
sleep. You know what I mean? So I wasn't dissing your question. I'm sorry
No,
if it
it's
came
a-
off that way,
right.
but I really want us to become intentional about that word just because
But-
I think it makes people think, you know, they're not thinking about why people use
Right.
this, you know.
But what
anyway.
the point Billy was hitting
Yeah.
that will improve commerce between 3 states. Let's say in tri-state area, Philly, Jersey, New York. If we are, once we all are legal, I mean, you're talking about the folks that come from Philly on Metro North up to New York in an hour and back and forth.
Right.
I mean, it's
Tri-state area is Connecticut, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I was
no,
just saying because he's
Pennsylvania,
in.
they
It's
call it
also
Where?
if you go
Tri-state
south,
area.
Oh, okay.
it's
New
that
Jersey
way.
and-
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
states, you know.
Yeah.
I
South
think that's
or
a good
north.
question.
Okay.
If when states start to be more connected, that
So
are
the
legalized.
quad states, man. 4
Yeah.
states, baby.
I mean, that might be enough to push it over the edge where you have this huge part of the population.
If it comes to New Jersey, or I mean, something's already going on in New Jersey. I don't know what's going on in
Yeah,
Connecticut.
Federal rules interstate commerce, but you get 3 states like Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. That's
Right.
that's a major trade block.
It's
Yeah.
major.
Yeah,
It's major.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's
And the
also
money it would produce is ridiculous. That's why I don't understand why everybody in the country isn't going green light, yo. Like,
And I mean the other businesses that'll benefit.
mhm.
You know, I'm going to Philly for their 420 day and get a cheesesteak.
Yep.
You know, 'cause,
dig it.
you know, it's what they're known for.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
and folks will come here, see Broadway plays, go do their thing, and
Mhm.
stop
Yeah.
at the spot. So
Excellent.
Mm.
Well, thank you for the great question, Billy. Do you guys have any other final comments? Or we could
No.
discuss it off air too. But
Yeah.
do we?
those
I
good
hope.
points, Billy.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Billy, for calling us.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. Love the show.
All right. Hope you enjoy our show. Thanks. All right. That was good.
Good. Well, I had another caller, but he's driving, and I don't feel. I feel like he's going to be doing other
Mm-mm.
things while he's driving. So
Is he driving and smoking?
Is he hotboxing?
He's in California, so
Does
he
he
can
have
never.
a
Could
Hands
be. Yeah, let's not like get him in trouble.
Oh, oh man. Yeah, I was just trying to see where people are at. If we had some more calls, but it looks like some people who are waiting are now driving. But
Well, if they have
Rush hour.
Bluetooth, that's not our
Yeah.
responsibility.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure the phone's not in their hands.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's not in their
And I
hands.
hope they can talk on
Give
the-
us a
yeah,
call.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
these devices that somebody made $1 million off of putting that thing right
I
there in the
know,
car, right?
right?
Uh-uh.
I know. I
and
love.
this listener was like, "My phone's about to die. Text my other phone." I'm like, "What other phone?"
Okay, we'll do.
We'll do.
Hey, I'm gonna do it right now.
Dear other phone.
Okay.
I'm texting
Oh,
you.
I gotta call her.
Yeah. This is Charles. Well, nice to have you back, Charles.
Charles,
I'm a little pissed off at you and your boy Brutus.
why?
That's not how I sound when I talk.
Charles, what are you doing for 420?
I'm not smoking. That's
You're not smoking, Charles?
Nah, I don't smoke. Come on, man.
Do you still drink?
Ask Shaq.
Wait, so you,
Wait, can we get
I'll
Mike
do a little
Tyson on
smoking,
the phone?
you know.
Can we get Mike Tyson
No,
on
we
the
can't
phone?
get Mike Tyson.
oh, he's
Why?
busy. He's
Is he
great. He's
busy?
growing
Yeah,
plants.
he's
He, he's
really?
finding. Oh.
Yeah,
yeah, you know he's building something.
yeah, in
Yeah.
Nevada, he's got like a research
I saw an
cannabis park.
interview with him recently,
Yeah.
dude, where he was smoking a joint and talking about how great Ali was.
Really?
Yeah, and how he could have never something how he
He
could have
smoked
never
on the
been like-
air?
Dude, he had a joint in his hand,
Oh,
dude.
snap.
Mike Tyson is
Mike
a real
Tyson.
deep dude, yo. He almost broke into tears, like
He
Yeah, man,
okay.
it's-
Can I talk about Mike Tyson then? He's
Mhm.
not a client. Jahan's like, oh God, don't
Is-
disclose. No,
no,
it's
no
not a HIPAA thing.
disclosure.
But
I was like,
I think.
That would
But
be
I
I was
have
like,
to
I knew I
tell you.
recognized that guy in the office.
I think that he has had a very difficult life. If you think of how he was brought up and then having to be in two different worlds like that, and then he was all of a sudden famous with tons of money, marries Robin Givens, who I'm not diagnosing anyone, but who's probably a
I know her.
handful. And then
I went to school with her.
and then
Sister.
they obviously he has a violent past and that's what his job is, but you can just, and the way I've seen him being interviewed as well, and some of the stuff he is intense.
Mhm.
He seems like a guy who's had a lot of trauma, who's trying to work through things. And as a therapist, of course, that makes me so happy when I see people, because we all have our
Tyson
shit.
was one of these
Mhm.
guys
know?
who was
Yeah.
generally and naturally just a really nice person,
Yeah,
but his surroundings and circumstances
groomed
made
through
him
that.
become the person that
I can't even imagine. Well, wait.
tough ass kicking dude.
Hold on. I want to ask you guys a question, because you did stuff in the past, and Greer, you're still acting and all professionally.
When they
but,
give me work,
well, no, but it has to be, if you're young and you get all of this success and money and women, it has to really fuck with your brain.
I wouldn't know because I'm not young.
Oh, give me. I'm
No,
serious.
well,
though.
I mean, as
I'm
far
serious.
as Mike Tyson is concerned,
He was young.
He
was
was
like the
like
top athlete on the
14 when
planet.
Right.
Customado took him in.
Right.
And then, if you watch the movie Conan the Barbarian, the same way Conan was trained to,
Right.
beat another person, that's how they essentially brought Mike up.
So I never saw that movie. So sorry,
Mm.
you're going to have to tell me, what does that mean?
So they basically took him away from his mother
Yeah.
at a young age.
No, he
and
was
his
an
parents.
orphan.
He was an orphan.
Yeah,
And then they put him in this youth
pit.
train pit thing where
he became a pit fighter. This is the Conan we're talking
Right.
about.
Oh, okay.
but it's the same.
I'm like,
it's
Mike
the same
Tyson was an
parallel.
orphan, sorry.
No, it's the same exact parallel though. That's why I brought
Okay.
the movie up and
And-
what it
and
did
that's
to
what-
Like
his
his
So-
parents weren't there.
So did the trainer actually take him from the family and all of that?
He
Mike
was his
Tyson?
father figure, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It
he
was a
just
father
Did he
figure.
not have any family before, or what happened?
He had a broken family,
Yeah.
like most black people in America. I'm kidding.
Not mine.
Not mine.
Right.
He came from a broken family, and
Right, right,
you know,
right.
and Customata came into his life, and all of that anger that he had, that he built up from living in the conditions that he was in, and
Yeah.
he took it and he fine-tuned it into a magnificent boxing
Right.
dynamo.
Mm.
And all of that money. And the worst thing that happened to Mike Tyson was when Customata died, because then all of the devils swooped in and they
Right.
brought evil in. If Customata would have been around for like another 10 years in Mike Tyson's
He
life,
would have
his
been fine.
outcome would have been completely different.
Yeah.
He would have never married Robin Givens.
So he was really
Never.
like
He
he
was-
was really a loving father figure to him.
Yep.
That's what I had always heard too.
Yeah, he was.
Used to
That's
kiss
what
him before the fights.
Yep.
Oh,
Boom,
so he
like-
gave him. Oh, that's
That's
sad.
what you saw.
But I mean, whatever he's dealing with,
Yeah.
is what he's dealing
Well,
with.
and we all deal
and
with
he's
stuff, so
gonna
that's
deal
not-
with it through his life. I would
Right.
imagine. You
Yeah.
gotta.
You guys ready to deal with one more caller?
Let's do it.
Sure.
All
sure,
right.
sure.
All right. Kyle, you're on the podcast. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from San Diego, California today.
Wow.
Wow.
Right on,
Sunny
Kyle.
California.
So what question brings you on the podcast today?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering. So, one, how often are we finding pesticides in cannabis and cannabis products? And then, two, how bad are these pesticides really for you?
Well,
So can I tell you from cultivators?
yeah,
here,
general agricultural stuff.
So-
Yeah, Randy here, Kyle, is our unapologetic farmer. He teaches and does a sustainable hydroponic
man.
cultivation. So he's a resident agricultural expert.
So some of our Harlem distributors who are fortunate enough to have California connections often they like the California outdoor bud, but it has been found to have pesticides
Right.
on it
Right.
as compared to indoor groomed bud that they get on the East Coast from cultivators that are growing in controlled environment stuff, where you tend to not find that stuff on the buds
Right.
anything other than say soap and neem oil if they are using any pesticides. So I think again California will find more because of your access to outdoor.
And Randy, I think you made a good point, though. You made a distinction. Now, you mentioned some pesticides, neem oil and these soaps.
Yep.
And when we talk about pesticides, most of the time people are thinking of other stuff.
That's right.
Not these. But, getting a little neem oil ingested is probably...
I don't know if you want to ingest it, even though, but I mean, it's been used by Egyptians since the pharaohs, used neem on their skin, but.
Yeah, so that makes
I-
sense. So there are some stuff that's been around for a while that are
Been around
considered
for a while.
pesticides.
Right.
But Kyle, is your question not so much about these natural pesticides, but about these other ones we find?
Exactly. Like some of the stuff like Eagle 20 and
Yep.
all these like more like widespread. I mean, they're used in other crops, I know too, but
Yeah.
right with cannabis, you're smoking it, you're not eating it. So
Wow.
I'm just curious as to how bad that is for you.
That is a good question. I know the workers who work with Eagle 20 packaging it wear all sorts of like Tyvek suits, and
Yep.
they don't
Really?
want to get
Yep.
exposed to it. When it's used in apples, but it's used when they're not flowering, when they're not
That's right.
producing fruits, because of its systemic nature. Oh,
And it's used with cannabis?
Yeah.
Or it has been?
Yeah, it has been. I definitely, there have been reports of a lot of pesticides. From the data we have, it looks like a lot of extracts in the last couple years have turned positive. So there's this weird thing that happens is as a cannabis flowers that have pesticides on it might pass the test, the lab analysis. But then when that gets concentrated, everything else gets concentrated in the plant, and then you might have more significant levels. So some of the things related to pesticide exposure have to do with a lot of like adverse effects, dizziness and nausea and things like that. Some of them even can bind like nicotinic receptors and have like weird effects and things like that. But generally it's considered not good to be chronically exposed to pesticides for your health. I would
Yeah.
say
No,
this.
That's just kind of scary.
It can be bad for your skin. You can get rashes and things like that. Yeah, there was an exposure to Avid from a person many years ago in the cannabis dispensary who was packaging stuff and
Right.
had an allergic reaction, I think, something that resembled an allergic
Sure.
reaction. So there can be like acute effects, like short-term effects from pesticide exposure. But there can be also long-term effects, which we have some evidence about their harm, but we don't know really if the levels in cannabis, how harmful those are over time.
So then, like in legal dispensaries in Colorado and California, Oregon and all that, can you expect that the cannabis from these legal dispensaries are going to have less chemicals on them, or what?
Well, from a pesticide point of view, pesticides are used every day
Right.
in every crop that we're eating.
Right.
So a typical consumer is washing their apple, washing their head of lettuce off, and assuming that is getting rid of all of the pesticides that have been used to keep it pest free. Now, we don't know that. We know this has been a practice in the United States for as long as there's been FDA control. Where we're getting to the point is that if you're growing outdoor bud on a huge plot of land, you've got to control pest in some form, in some
Right.
way.
No, I get that.
And I don't know if there's enough research that has been.
Do you, Jahan? I mean, because to me, this is another safety issue, like we
Yeah.
were just talking about
Mhm.
earlier. Like,
We don't know
can
how
we
bad it is
expect-
for us.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's
Yeah.
you should go with
We
the.
don't.
That's
Yeah.
why you should avoid stuff
Yeah.
on the illicit market, because it probably wasn't good enough to be sold in a dispensary. In the
Ah.
past several years, there was a study published by Ethan Russo, and this is a famous cannabis researcher, and he bought I think it was almost 30 extracts in Washington State in the adult use market, and had them tested independently. And I think something like 70% of them came up with pesticides. There's even a class
Man.
action lawsuit
I was
right
just about to
now
say that.
against
Man.
a vape.
Roundup or something.
Yeah, they find it in some
Mhm.
products, even though they're labeled as pesticide free. So you really
Yeah.
have to be careful out there.
Oh,
So to
yeah.
answer your question,
Don't
Kyle,
smoke it.
yeah, is that
The pesticide.
is that there is probably been highly prevalent in the past, but we anticipate with more and more regulations, it'll be more regulated like agriculture is today.
Yeah.
But we really don't know what the long-term effects are of.
Oh, sorry.
This is surreal.
This is super
That's
Getting some
frosty,
feedback.
Jan,
dude.
what are you doing?
But,
Using
That's
someone
frosty.
else's computer.
but no, but it's a good question, Kyle. If we can find more data, we'll put it in the show notes. But as far as we know, the long-term effects are unknown, but there can be short-term health effects and may be responsible for some side effects of cannabis products. It's not related to the THC.
Yeah.
But it is a problem, and I think with cannabis being regulated federally,
Yep.
we'll get guidance from things like the USDA and stuff about what pesticides are approved for this type of use. But I think,
FDA,
yeah.
I mean, on a day, just a little
Wow.
slight side note, but if you buy chicken from a supermarket, are you buying organic chicken, or are you still buying, the Purdue,
yeah.
that they eat, the feed that has the genetically modified feed? And because it's, ingrained in us, we're generally picking up the Purdue and Tyson
Doing
Farms
that.
or whatever, and not spending extra
Mhm.
for the organic stuff
Mhm.
that.
So maybe that's a good tip to help people navigate this cannabis market. Is it might be worth paying that extra dollar for
Maybe.
something that's tested and
Yeah.
handled a little better
Absolutely.
until we know what the risks
What's
are.
really going on, and
Yeah.
to realize if you're buying it from the illicit market, you
Yep.
really don't know what you're getting, and potentially getting something
That's right.
that wasn't good enough for the
That's
legal
right.
market.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
And
good.
should be a selling point to
yeah,
highlight that from
absolutely.
people
And
who don't.
consumers don't understand that.
Right.
That's where, as I've gotten into this journey, that's kind of become part of my passion, is that we really just don't understand the nuances
Mhm.
around cannabis.
And if it was
you know?
wine, you pay extra for a
Absolutely.
great
Great.
bottle of wine.
Right.
And
Right? Do
Good.
they have any like organic cannabis
Yeah,
producers?
well, then it can't be labeled strictly like that because of the USDA, but there are
Oh.
processes for producing hemp and stuff that are organic. So organic isn't actually necessarily a product, it's a process for producing it.
Right.
So sometimes you do see organic products that have pesticides because they're grown next to plants that are sprayed in an agricultural setting.
Mhm.
So how's that for a melon
Oh.
scratcher?
No,
Oh
So
my
I
God.
hope that gets close to answering your question, Kyle.
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah,
good one,
yeah,
Kyle.
yeah.
That was a very thorough answer, and I'm really appreciative. Thank you all so much.
Oh,
Thanks,
thanks for
man.
listening,
Thanks,
Kyle.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we had a record 3 callers today.
Uh-oh.
This might
Wow.
become what we do. I don't know. We'll
I
see.
like this.
No, it's
I
good.
like them asking
Yeah.
questions because I think that's really important. So
Yep.
maybe we can just keep asking our listeners that as you're listening through the week, send us questions on Facebook.
That's right.
We're happy. We want to be able to answer this, or we can give you the number to call in. You know, we'll have to figure that out. Maybe, you know what? We can figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool.
So we're
We're
nearing
like-
the end here. So I just want to leave the people who are still listening and watching this with their mind munchie for the week. Do we have anyone want to go first?
I will. Just because my granny had a saying, and I've been thinking about something that my granny, who is just this crazy, funny Southern woman, said. So I'm going to leave with a saying this week. And there's nothing behind the saying. There's no meaning behind the saying. It's just actually my favorite saying. Everything that shines isn't silver, and everything that stinks isn't shit.
Mm.
I love that saying.
Mm.
Jahan's heard it a lot, probably. I say this all the time. So if you have something bad, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, because you never
I
know.
like it.
And just because something seems really good
That's
and
right.
great doesn't really necessarily mean it's a good thing.
That's right.
So it's a really kind of unique saying, and it's just there's a lot of wisdom behind that. And I've been thinking about her this week. So
All right.
cool.
Cool.
Do you all have a mind munchie?
Here's a little assignment for our listeners, and maybe somebody will come back. There's a bad song called "Harvest for the World" by one of the baddest groups ever, the Isley Brothers. Read the words to this song, and it applies directly to what the cannabis industry is facing, what we deserve as folks and humans that are existing here. And trust me, when you look up the words to that song, and we will quote some of them next week, you'll see how
What's the
important
name of
they
the song
are. It's
again?
called "Harvest for the World" by the
Okay.
Isley Brothers.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, I
That's
like that.
Beautiful. Nice. I like that.
Awesome.
Greer, do you have a mind munchie for this week?
No,
None.
no. I'm going to keep these gems to myself.
Yeah, that could be the mind munchie. Keep the gems.
That's,
to-
yeah,
Keep the
that's
gems
it.
to
Munch on
yourself.
That's that. Munch on that.
Perfect. Perfect. That's hard to top right there. I guess I would just close by saying someone wrote this in a textbook to me about cannabis that they authored. They wrote "Better Living Through Phytochemistry," so better living through plant chemistry.
Oh, I like
So
that.
think about how
Brilliant.
plants affect your life a lot, not just cannabis,
Yep.
and figure out how to live better through them.
All
Yes.
right. That's great.
Yes.
Wow,
So-
another show. What is this episode number?
This is episode 11.
Damn.
Thank you
damn.
so much, everyone, and we will post this with some notes.
Yep. And as always, before we end it, I do want to thank our wonderful sound engineer, producer guy, Miles.
Miles.
We love
Miles.
Miles. He's had to help with technical issues today. Lots of technical issues Jen's having.
Good stuff.
And also, though, for you, the listener, we really need your support. So
That's right.
please, patreon.com/New Hemp Times. There are different levels of support. We hope that you will join us on this crazy ride that we call the Global Cannabis Bonanza.
Right. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night,
Next
guys.
week.
Bye.
Ah.